You've probably said it many times before. You're beautiful. It feels like the correct thing to say, doesn't it? It sounds polite, it feels positive, it shows appreciation. But here is the honest truth. Those words have become empty. Not because beauty has no value, but because those words no longer carry weight. They have turned into background noise in a woman's everyday life. Compliments like that are safe, expected, and most importantly, they don't stir anything inside her. What you need to understand is that desire is not created in the obvious places. It is born in what is unspoken, unexpected, and psychologically charged. It lives in the spaces between words, the moments that slip past logic and go straight under her skin, making her feel noticed in a way she cannot fully explain. When a man tells a woman, "You're beautiful," what he is often doing without realizing it is placing her on a pedestal and hoping to be rewarded for noticing what countless other men have already noticed. She knows she is beautiful. She has been hearing that since she was young. She does not need another reminder. What she needs is a man who notices something deeper. Desire starts when a woman feels that you are present enough to see something real inside her. Not her looks, but her essence, her contradictions, her unpredictability, her emotional energy. That is where arousal lives for women, not in how much praise they receive, but in how deeply they feel understood and seen. So, what should you say instead? You speak to the part of her that is not on display, the part she does not show off or advertise. You might say something like, "The way you talk about the things you care about makes everything else disappear for a moment." Or, "I noticed how you pause before you laugh, like you are holding something back." There is something captivating about that. Now you are not talking about her face, her makeup, or her body. You are speaking to her inner world. And most men do not even know how to look there, let alone speak to it. This does something powerful. It throws her off balance, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that breaks the familiar patterns she is used to. You have just stepped out of the group of men who want her and into the rare space of a man who actually notices her. In that moment, she is not just flattered, she is drawn in. The part of her that wants to be understood, uncovered, and known has just been activated. That part is hungry for connection. Let's go deeper. Complimenting a woman's beauty often comes from the belief that your value comes from recognizing hers. It assumes you are offering attention in exchange for approval, attraction, or intimacy. But real masculine presence does not work like that. It does not ask for permission. It does not try to earn. It simply exists and speaks truthfully. It speaks not to impress, but to reveal. It reflects something back to her that even she may not have fully realized about herself. This is what Esther Perel often refers to when she talks about erotic intelligence. Desire is not about what is clearly visible. It is about what is imagined. It lives in the psychological space between two people. It grows when curiosity replaces certainty, when observation replaces praise, and when presence replaces performance. So the next time you are with a woman, resist the urge to fill silence with compliments. Let her talk. Watch her. Listen not just to what she says, but how she says it. Notice her tone, her rhythm, the changes in her eyes. Then speak from that place. You could say something like, "There is something about the way you hesitate before answering. It tells me you think more deeply than you let people see." That single sentence can do more for her desire than 1,000 your gorgeous comments ever could. Why does this work? Because it requires real presence. It shows grounded, embodied attention, which is something many men are too distracted, too insecure, or too focused on performing to offer. Saying you're beautiful is not wrong, but it is incomplete. It stays on the surface. It requires no effort. And women sense that. What she truly wants is to be felt, not just seen. She wants to be engaged as a mystery, not displayed as a prize. She wants to be experienced as a force, not reduced to a feature. So change the way you speak. Step out of automatic responses. Talk to her in a way that reaches what is hidden. Let her feel that you are tuning into something subtle and meaningful, not just scanning her for obvious traits. That is when desire starts to grow. That is when she begins to lean closer. That is when she starts imagining what it would be like to be fully opened by a man who understands the language of her inner world. Because in the end, it is not your words alone that get under her skin. It is your focused, specific, and fearless attention. We often think desire is physical, a spark, a look, a touch. And while that may be true for many men, for most women, desire is far more layered. It is emotional, it is psychological, sometimes it is even existential. It is not about what you look like or the surface meaning of what you say. It is about how you make her feel about herself when she is with you. And when that feeling carries emotional depth and intimacy, it opens the door to physical longing. If you enter a conversation thinking your goal is to be charming, impressive, or seductive, you are already missing the point. Women do not want charm, they want connection. What turns them on more than clever words is the energy behind those words, your attention, your curiosity, your emotional courage to be genuine. This is where many men misunderstand attraction. They think sexuality is about performance, dominance, or acting confident. But what truly creates arousal in a woman is emotional depth, the energy that says, I am here, I am grounded, and I am not afraid of who you really are beneath the surface. That kind of masculine presence is magnetic. Not the man who rushes to prove himself, but the one who calmly witnesses her complexity and makes space for it. It begins with your language. Are your words coming from observation and presence, or are you throwing out compliments and hoping one will work? Consider the difference between saying, you look great in that dress, and saying, there is something about how you carry yourself when you are relaxed. Your energy fills the room without effort. One is surface approval, the other is emotional precision. And precision is deeply seductive. Here is something rarely talked about. Women are not craving validation. They are craving relevance. They want to feel meaningful to you, not just as a body, but as a presence. That means engaging with the parts of her that are often ignored, her thoughts, her memories, her quiet moments. When you reflect something back to her that shows you have truly been listening, you unlock a part of her most men never reach. You activate her emotional imagination, and that is where desire begins. This does not mean turning every conversation into something heavy or intense. It is not about analyzing her or pushing depth for the sake of it. It is about being tuned in, speaking from attention instead of intention. If she shares a childhood memory, do not just smile and move on. You might say, it sounds like that experience shaped more than your personality, maybe even how you protect yourself now. That is emotional insight, and insight creates closeness. But understand this clearly. This is not a trick or a script. You cannot fake it. You cannot memorize a few lines and expect real attraction. This only works when you are doing your own inner work, when you are present in your body, connected to your emotions, and not afraid to be seen. The more emotionally available you are, the safer she feels opening up. And the more she opens emotionally, the more she wants closeness on every level, including physical. Desire flows where emotional resonance meets grounded masculine stability. She wants to feel that you feel her, not because you are trying to seduce her, but because you are alive enough to notice what others miss. When you reflect her humanity back to her, you become desirable not just as a person, but as an experience. You become unforgettable. This is what Esther Perel means when she says eroticism thrives in curiosity and exploration. Most men destroy curiosity by turning interactions into goals and steps, but a woman does not want to be solved. She wants to be discovered moment by moment. That sense of discovery is what excites her. Not being claimed, but being surprised by a man who sees behind her eyes before ever reaching for her body. If this sounds like effort, it is, but it is the kind of effort that separates men she forgets from the one she keeps thinking about. The man who made her feel something rare, something she could not explain. So remember this: if you want to awaken desire, speak to what is underneath. Not the beauty she shows the world, but the emotion she keeps guarded. The thoughts she is unsure are safe to share. When you touch those places with your words, your eyes, and your presence, you become more than attractive. You become deeply compelling. You become desired, and in that space, everything begins to shift in a real and noticeable way. One of the most misunderstood ideas in male-female dynamics is the belief that women are mainly looking for praise, that if you simply say enough flattering words, she will automatically be pulled toward you. Many men grow up thinking attraction is built by compliments, approval, and verbal admiration. But here is the uncomfortable truth that most people avoid. Praise without presence is just noise. It is empty sound with no weight behind it. She does not need more admiration added to the pile she already receives. What she needs is to feel your energy, your stability, and your depth. And that does not come from telling her she is beautiful or special. It comes from showing up with a calm, grounded power that very few men truly know how to embody. When you say, "You're beautiful," ask yourself what you are really doing in that moment. In most cases, you are seeking approval. You are hoping that by offering her a compliment, she will reward you with attention, affection, or validation. That creates a hidden transaction. You give praise and you wait, you watch her face, you look for a reaction, but that dynamic quietly places you in the role of the performer and her in the role of the judge. You are offering something and waiting to see if it is accepted. That is not desire. That is negotiation. Desire cannot be negotiated into existence. Masculine presence is not about offering or proving. It is about being. It is about standing firmly in who you are with nothing to prove and nothing to chase. A woman does not fall for a man because he flatters her or stacks compliments in clever ways. She falls because she feels something when she is around him. She feels her body soften. She feels her guard slowly drop. She feels a sense of safety that she cannot logically explain. Not because he told her she was special, but because his energy invited her fully into the present moment. His presence allowed her to relax without effort. This is why true presence is far more powerful than praise. When you are present, you are not performing. You are not trying to be impressive, clever, smooth, or seductive. You are simply there, alert, receptive, steady, and grounded. You are not distracted by how she is reacting to you. You are not constantly scanning her face for approval. You are not trying to read her mind or manage her impression of you. You are just witnessing her deeply, without an agenda. And in a strange way, that is exactly what makes you magnetic. When you stop praising and start observing, something important happens. The entire dynamic shifts. Instead of making everything about her appearance, you begin to speak to her essence. You notice how she moves through a room. You notice the tone of her voice when she feels comfortable. You notice the way her eyes change when she feels understood. You might say something like, "There is a quiet intensity in the way you look at people when you are really listening, and it is disarming." That is not empty praise. That is perception. And perception, when it is authentic and precise, can be intoxicating. In that moment, she does not just feel seen on the surface. She feels known at a deeper level. Attraction stops being about your looks or your clever words and starts becoming about the experience of being around you. She begins to associate your presence with calm, clarity, and emotional safety, and that feeling stays with her long after the conversation ends. This kind of presence is not something you can fake or copy from a script. It is not a trick or a tactic you pull out when you want attention. It is a way of being that comes from doing your own internal work. It comes from being in touch with your emotions without being controlled by them. It comes from knowing your own worth so deeply that you do not feel the need to advertise it. When you show up calm, clear, and rooted within yourself, she feels it immediately. She feels it in her body, not just in her thoughts. She relaxes, she trusts, her imagination opens. What many men fail to realize is that women are constantly scanning for emotional safety. Not safety in the obvious or physical sense, but safety on a deeper emotional level. Can she express herself without being judged? Can she be silly, intense, emotional, or quiet without feeling like she has to manage your reactions? Can she surrender to her own desire without feeling like she is being used or pressured? These questions are being answered by your energy long before she ever says a word. This is why words alone are never enough. You can say all the right things, use the perfect lines, and deliver compliments with perfect timing. But if your energy says, "I need something from you," she will feel it immediately and pull away. Her body will respond before her mind does. But if your presence says, "I am here and I do not need to take anything from you. I am simply witnessing what is real," she will be drawn to you with a force she cannot logically explain. This is the essence of masculine containment, the ability to hold space without trying to control it. You do not rush to fill silence. You do not try to steer every moment toward a desired outcome. You allow things to unfold naturally. That patience, that stillness, that grounded calm is what allows her to feel safe enough to